There's a person who, when something breaks, doesn't immediately think about replacing it. They think, what went wrong? Can this be fixed? What would it take? And they'll spend an afternoon, sometimes longer, figuring it out. Not because they can't afford a new one. Not because they don't know better. But because something in them refuses to give up on something that still has life in it. You probably know someone like this. Or you are someone like this. And here's what's interesting, that instinct, the one that sees value in broken things, rarely stays in the garage. It shows up in how they approach relationships. In how they handle failures. In how they see people others have written off. By the end of this video, you're going to understand what that instinct actually is, where it comes from, what it reveals about the kind of mind that carries it, and why the people who see value in broken things often see something most people miss entirely. Picture a Saturday morning. A man in his 60s is in the garage. He's been there since 7. The lawnmower in front of him hasn't run in 2 seasons. His neighbor told him to junk it. His son offered to just buy him a new one. He declined both. He takes it apart, slowly, methodically, laying each piece on a workbench covered with a clean rag. He studies the carburetor. He orders a part online for $11. He waits 3 days for it to arrive. He installs it. He adjusts the fuel line. He pulls the cord. Nothing. He adjusts again. He checks a detail he missed. He pulls again. The engine coughs. Then catches. Then settles into a low, steady run. And something happens in that garage that no trip to the hardware store could ever produce. Not just satisfaction. Something deeper. The specific feeling of having been right about something when everyone around you had already decided you were wrong. He didn't fix the lawnmower. He proved something about how he sees the world. And what he proved, and what this moment reveals, goes far beyond a preference for saving money or avoiding waste. It reveals a way of seeing things that shapes every part of how a person moves through their life. People who see value in broken things don't just have a practical skill. They have a different lens. Where most people see a broken object, they see a diagnosis waiting to be made. A problem with a solution. A thing that was working, and therefore can work again. This isn't stubbornness. It's a form of optimism that most people don't recognize as optimism because it comes dressed in work clothes and smells like engine oil. Psychologists call it an internal locus of control, the belief that outcomes aren't determined by luck or circumstance, but by effort, knowledge and persistence. People with this trait don't accept "it's done" as a conclusion. They accept it as a starting point for asking why. Most people, when faced with something broken, outsource the question. They ask, what's the replacement? What's the cost? How fast can I move on? The person with an internal locus of control asks something different. What actually happened here? What's the mechanism of the failure? And, most importantly, is that failure actually final? That second question changes everything. Because most things that appear finished aren't. They're just in a state that requires someone willing to look more carefully than everyone else already did. And this matters far beyond objects. Because the person who spends a Saturday diagnosing a carburetor is the same person who, when a friendship hits a difficult season, asks what went wrong instead of walking away. Who, when they fail at something, wants to understand the mechanism of the failure. Who sees a situation others have abandoned and thinks, maybe this just needs someone willing to look. They see potential where others see outcome. And there's something else these people have developed, something that sits underneath the skill and the patience, that most people will never build because they never had to sit with broken things long enough to learn it. Here's what happens when you spend years working on things that are broken. You learn that broken doesn't mean worthless. That sounds simple. But it's not, because the world is constantly telling us otherwise. Discard it. Upgrade. Move on. Get the new version. Don't waste time on something that isn't working. And there's a quiet counterculture of people who have spent their lives disagreeing with that. Not loudly. Not with a manifesto. Just with their hands and their time and their refusal to give up on something before they understand it. And in learning that broken things can be restored, that a rusted engine can run again, that a cracked frame can hold again, that something left for dead can come back to life, they internalized something that most people only ever say. That broken doesn't mean over. That there is a difference between something that is finished and something that is hard. That the middle of a repair, when everything is in pieces, when nothing is working, when you're not sure it will come together, is not the ending. It's the middle. This shows up in how they treat people. They tend to be slower to write someone off. More patient with people in difficult seasons. More likely to believe that someone struggling isn't someone lost. Less likely to mistake a person's worst moment for their whole story. They've held enough broken things in their hands to know that the break is rarely the whole story. And that knowledge, earned through patience and grease and hours in garages and workshops, becomes a philosophy. Not one they could necessarily articulate. Just one they live by. But this way of seeing things comes with a cost. A real one. And the people who carry this instinct don't always see it clearly until they're already deep inside it. The same instinct that makes someone extraordinary at restoration can also make them stay too long. In the garage, that's a minor problem. You spend extra hours on a machine that maybe wasn't worth the time. You learn something. You move on. But in life, that same instinct can lead someone to invest years in a relationship that has stopped being fixable. To keep trying to reach a person who doesn't want to be reached. To carry a situation, a friendship, a partnership, a family dynamic, long past the point where carrying it serves anyone. The comments on the video that inspired this one are full of it. Real people writing about real things. I fixed junk and I stayed married way too long. I tried fixing the 15-year relationship. It's killing me. Worst thing is I do it for others too. That's my programmed downfall. I'm big on second chances. I see something that could have life in it and I try to bring it back. Because the instinct doesn't distinguish between a carburetor and a person. It just sees, broken. And it reaches for tools. And sometimes that's heroic. Sometimes it saves things worth saving, relationships that just needed someone willing to do the hard work, friendships that were one honest conversation away from repair, situations that looked finished but weren't. But sometimes broken means done. Not because there's no solution, but because the other party has stopped being a participant in the repair. Because some things, and some people, have already decided they won't be fixed. Not by you. Not by anyone. And the hardest thing for someone with this instinct to accept is that their willingness to try doesn't create an obligation in the other party to meet them there. You can see value in something that has decided it has none. You can work on something that has stopped cooperating with the repair. And staying in that situation isn't loyalty. It isn't persistence. It's just, staying. The person who sees value in broken things has to learn, slowly, sometimes painfully, the difference between something that can be restored and something that has already decided it won't be. And that distinction, knowing when to keep going and when to put the tools down, is perhaps the most important thing this instinct ever has to teach. At its core, the ability to see value in broken things is a form of hope. Not naive hope. Not the hope that ignores reality or refuses to update when evidence changes. But the specific, practical, earned hope that comes from experience, from having been right before when everyone else said it was over. From having started a repair that looked impossible and finished it. From having proven, more than once, that broken is not the same as done. These people have a relationship with persistence that most people don't develop because they opt out before it forms. They've learned to be comfortable in the middle, in the place where everything is taken apart, nothing is working yet, and the outcome is still uncertain. Most people hate that place. They want resolution. They want to know how it ends before they commit to the process. The person who sees value in broken things has made peace with not knowing. They've learned that the middle is where the work happens. That uncertainty isn't a sign that something is wrong. It's a sign that you're in the part that matters. And that changes how you move through the world. It makes you more patient with processes that take longer than expected. More honest about failure, because you've learned that failure is often just a step in the diagnosis, not a verdict on the whole. More capable of sitting with difficulty without panicking. More willing to invest in something before you can see the result. Underneath all of it, the grease and the patience and the stubbornness, there's a quiet belief that runs through everything these people do. Most things are worth one more look before you let them go. And that belief, applied carefully and honestly, to objects, to people, to situations, to yourself, is one of the rarest and most valuable things a person can carry. If you're someone who can't walk past a broken thing without wanting to understand it, you're not wasting your time. You're not being impractical. You're not refusing to move on. You're practicing a way of seeing the world that most people never develop. One that says, broken isn't the end of the story. It's just where the story gets interesting. But remember this too. The same instinct that makes you extraordinary at seeing what others miss can also keep you in places that have already finished with you. Knowing when to keep going and when to put the tools down, that's not giving up. That's wisdom. And it's the hardest repair of all. And it's one worth making. If you see value in broken things, comment restore below. And if you're watching this thinking, I know I stay too long. I know I keep trying to fix things that have already decided they're done. And I don't know how to stop. That's the next video. Because seeing value in broken things is one of the most powerful instincts a person can have. But sometimes the most important thing you can fix is knowing when to put the tools down.